who are going to be taking responsibility for that very honourable task.
Yes, we've heard a lot about the Royal Company of Archers. The used to be called the Queen's Bodyguard for Scotland, now called the King's Bodyguard for Scotland, and they mounted the first vigil there even before the King left the cathedral, and they will keep a constant watch over the coffin whilst it's in St Giles's Cathedral for the next 24 hours in vigils that have been divided into 20 minutes in duration. So over the next 24 hours, that's the main job of the Royal Company of Archers.
And as ever, Penny, as we observe what's happening, there is this extraordinary mixture, isn't there, of ceremony, of protocol, of tradition, and yet at the heart of it, a very human story of a family that have lost their matriarch, not just a queen, but a mother, a grandmother.
You know, there is so much wrapped up in this, you know, this scene we've seen today. I mean, our new king is in his mother's car. You know, he has stepped seamlessly into the it's the whole sort of, I mean, there's the family grief, there's the pomp and ceremony, the ancient traditions, but there's also this continuity of monarchy. You know, that, I mean, goodness knows I've written about for years, but this is the first time that I've ever actually sort of witnessed how, well, any of us have witnessed, how amazingly it all happens.
It's changed, but it's continuity, isn't it?
Absolutely. The Queen is, you know, the King is dead, long live the King. And we've actually seen it in action. And in every day since we had the news of the Queen's death, we've seen that, you know, this poor man who's lost his mother has not had time to draw breath. He's been on a roller coaster of you know,
of duty, isn't it? Of obligation,
and of you know, greeting people who are bringing back the grief because they're tearful, they're expressing their sorrow for him, which all must be really difficult. You know, we've all lost people, and we know what it's like when someone comes up in the street and says, you know, I'm so sorry, and touches you. You know, well, that's what he's getting all the time at the moment, and yet he's off to meet the First Minister. He's already done the ambassadors. He's done the.
And there we're seeing the first watch, the first vigil by the Royal Company of Archers, the King's Bodyguard for Scotland, carrying out the first 20-minute vigil.
And the Crown of Scotland.
And the Crown of Scotland, which was made for James V. The Scottish gold you can see just at the bottom of the screen there, which was placed on top of the coffin before the service began.
By the Duke of Hamilton.
By the Duke of Hamilton. And the Crown of Scotland has, we are told, 22 gemstones and 20 precious stones made from previous crowns. And that was brought to St Giles's Cathedral this morning under police guard.
Where from? Where from? Where does it normally live?
It's held by the Historic Environment Scotland, which is the authority that looks after it when it's here. So presumably the equivalent people who look after the crown jewels when in London.
Well, it's fascinating stuff. The new king keeps quoting Shakespeare in his speeches, and I must say all of this does seem rather Shakespearean, doesn't it? With dukes and earls and kings and queens. It's all fascinating stuff. Well, we can actually join Louise Scott now, who's outside St Giles Cathedral. And Louise, a really remarkable atmosphere there throughout.
Yes, there's been real calmness and stillness as the procession made its way up here to Parliament Square for entering St Giles Cathedral. Really the only sound you could hear was the horses' hooves on the cobblestones. Then the Queen's coffin was taken inside, followed behind by King Charles III, and standing alongside his siblings, and the door closed. Then we started to hear music from the organs. There were speakers further down the Royal Mile around Market Cross, where we heard the proclamation of the King yesterday. The speakers echoing the sound of the hymns and of the prayers. Lots of people were holding devices up in the air, recording this moment, one which they want to watch back, send to friends and family all around the world the eyes are on Edinburgh right now, but really the world is also here. People from all over watching these moments happen. And the service, of course, attended by dignitaries, by politicians, but also people representing the interests of the Queen, from arts and sports and the Scottish culture, and really everyone here just taking it in, chatting amongst themselves about what's happened. And we've just seen the Royal Guard, the Guard of Honour, make its way back up, and for those hoping to see the Queen's coffin lying here at St Giles Cathedral, well, they're now making their way around the corner to hopefully do so.
Louise Scott, thank you. And an incredible moment as the Queen's coffin was driven past the crowds of thousands on its journey along the Royal Mile earlier to its place here in St Giles Cathedral. And Sangeeta Lal was there with people as it passed. Sangeeta, what was that like?
Anyone in the gallery? Well, the crowd here is just beginning to disperse after waiting hours to see the Queen and the procession. And actually, while we were here, we saw so many people moved by the ceremony, which was played out on the speakers. We saw people wiping tears from their eyes and bowing their heads as they listened to the music and the tributes paid. And I'm joined by Jude. Jude, how did you feel? You were right at the front of the barriers, able to see not just the Queen, but also the rest of the royal family. How did you feel when you saw that?
It was incredibly moving. Like millions of others, I found myself unusually upset on Thursday when I heard of Her Majesty's death. And I felt that after her giving us 70 years of her, selfless dedication, the very least I could do was come and spend 24 hours and show my respects.
And there really were some beautiful moments in that ceremony, the tribute of her gentle humour.
Yes.
How did you feel that this was finally a moment where people could come together and reflect on her?
I think it's something that the nation needs at this point, and it has been a coming together of cultures and of minds. I know for me, I could have stayed at home and watched on the TV, but I think it was much more important to be here and to, apart from being a part of history, to be able to show the respect.
And you were so close to her. What was it like when you saw not just the Queen but also the royal family move past?
I wasn't expecting to see the royal family as close as we did. The raw emotion that we've seen on so many of their faces, it really brought it home that it's not just the monarch that we've lost, but it's a mother, grandmother and great-grandmother.
Thank you so much for your time today, Jude.
That's right, cheers.
Well, so many here have been queuing for hours. They are now leaving, finally, after paying their own respects, their own tributes, and saying goodbye in their own way to the Queen.
Sangeeta Lal, outside St Giles Cathedral, thank you. Well, following the service, attention now inevitably turns to a period in which the Queen will lie in rest in St Giles Cathedral until tomorrow afternoon. The building will be open throughout the night to allow as many people as possible to pay their respects. And queues have been building already throughout the day. Neil Connery has been meeting some of those at the very front.
Well, this is the queue of those who are waiting to go inside St Giles Cathedral to pay their respects as the coffin bearing Her late Majesty lays at rest inside the High Kirk, the parish church of the old town of Edinburgh. And these are the people, as you can see, who've been waiting, many of them for many hours here. I can speak to Annette here with some family and friends. Hi. How are you feeling about being here today?
Really emotional, actually. We're quite taken aback at how emotional we feel. We've been here just to to say thank you to her.
And tell me, what time did you get here this morning?
So we came last night. We drove up from Liverpool yesterday, and then stayed not far from here to bring the kids up. It was a last-minute decision.
It felt like we had to do it.
Yeah,
It felt like we needed to do it to pay our respects, didn't we?
it's such a historical event that we thought, for the kids especially, because we've just had the Jubilee, so they learned all about the Queen and everything. So we thought, right, we just need to take them so they can actually experience it for themselves.
Do you think it's possible to put into words what we've lost here?
That's impossible. It's just such an emotional time, and I think you can feel it from everyone in the crowd and the queues. It's just...
Everyone's feeling the same, aren't they? We're like sharing. We've all been chatting to you as well.
We've all
from all over the
snacks,
place, people from Hawaii and everyone's feeling the same. It's like a big loss. It's like we're still a little bit in shock.
Yeah, it's like losing a family member. Yeah, it is.
And can I ask maybe how you're feeling about being here in Edinburgh today and what the Queen meant to you?
I just thought it meant to me that because she reigned over us for such a long time, and we've just lost her straight away. And some people here have known her all their lives, but younger people haven't really known her that long. Some of them just died.
Well, you have some lovely flowers there, and I see you've got some lovely flowers down here as well. What's it like to be here today, and how important is it for you?
The Queen is very important to me because she was an incredible role model to everybody in the UK and not even there, all around the world. And I think we should give her some flowers as an act of gratitude to her and respect to her because she's been our Queen for so long.
That's a lovely thought. Thank you so much for spending time with us, and I hope you don't have to wait too long to make your way up to St Giles Cathedral. Thank you very much. The advice to the public is that if you are coming, it is going to take some considerable time to make your way through this queue, so do come prepared.
Neil Connery outside St Giles Cathedral, where the public will be allowed in to pay their respects to the coffin from 5:30 this evening. Well, let's go back to our Royal Editor Chris Shipp and Royal Author, commentator Penny Junor. Penny, your thoughts?
Well, none of us can choose where we want to die, but I do believe that the Queen wanted to die in Balmoral, and it is a blessing for, I think, the whole country that she did die in Balmoral, because all of this that we've seen today, this opportunity for Scottish people to pay their last respects to the Queen is only possible, is only happening because she died in Scotland. If she had died at Windsor, as the Duke of Edinburgh did, or Sandringham, all of this would have been very London-centric. And I think it's a fantastic thing. We are a united kingdom, as long as we still are. And as we know, I think the Queen was quite pleased that we still are. So I think this has been the most extraordinary tribute to the Queen, a real show of affection from the people all over Scotland, and a fantastic display of pageantry and perfect mix of the old and the new.
Yes, agreed. And just for anyone who's wondering, just to reiterate that the Royal Company of Archers are standing vigil, and they are in shifts of 20 minutes, and one at each corner of the coffin. You can see they're magnificent in their uniforms. They have their heads bowed. They have to be completely motionless, and just out of sight there is a spare, just in case anyone feels lightheaded. And they're overseen by their adjutant, who's a chap called Jamie Fraser, who's making sure that everything goes according to plan. And Chris, everything does go and has gone entirely according to plan, hasn't it?
Absolutely so, and I think that first watch must be so significant for those members of the Royal Company of Archers who are performing it over these 20-minute cycles you've just been discussing, Mary. And I completely agree with what Penny said. I was talking to a former palace aide who used to work in Holyrood House, and she said it's so fitting that it's happening in Scotland, on the Royal Mile, at St Giles Cathedral, you know, the focus being the palace of Holyrood House. And I think that will mean a lot to the royal family that they've been able to stage today's events right here in the Scottish capital.
Chris, Penny, thank you both. It is, I think, hard to take in the sheer scale of these events, literally epoch-defining events, as Scotland launched the whole great format process of bidding farewell to the late Queen Elizabeth. There was a wonderful tender note of informality just before the start of today's ceremonials when King Charles and the Queen Consort made an unscheduled stop for an impromptu walkabout outside Holyrood House Palace. There, the royal couple met members of the public who had gathered in the palace flower garden to pass on their condolences. And you can see them there examining the flowers. Thousands packed Edinburgh's Royal Mile as the procession bearing the Queen's coffin was followed on foot by King Charles and her other 3 children. They stood in tribute as it passed on its way to St Giles Cathedral. There, the coffin was borne inside, its military bearers with their caps removed. In the cathedral itself, the service of prayer and thanksgiving for Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth took place in this historic crown of Scotland, placed on top of the coffin. The service was attended by Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, and people from all walks of life to whom the Queen had meant so much. So we've reached the end of this special live programme. We're back at 6:30 for an extended evening news. I hope you'll join me then.
Good afternoon to you. It's been a mixed start to the week out there. Relatively warm for many of us given the time of year. Some occasional late low sunshine as the day draws to a close, but disappointingly dull and damp in places. This is the earlier satellite and radar picture. Clearer skies to end the day at the top and tail end of the country. Elsewhere, a lot more cloud cover, showery pulses of rain turning heavy, potentially thundery. And it stays notably warm across the south. Here, highs of 26 degrees a little earlier across the southeast, closer to 28 across the Channel Islands, but heavy thundery downpours possible. Further north through central, southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, a clearer end to the day. And as we head through this evening, that rain pulling away into the near North Sea. And then we've got generally clear skies tonight, dipping temperatures in the countryside. Further south, notably mild for the time of year, not much below 17 degrees here.
How was the dreaded school?
It was alright.
There you go. Look, you know you can talk to me, right?
Actually, Dad, it's just that any time I go over to her, she doesn't talk to me or she walks away, and then I've been messaging her.
Now we join Ben Shepherd with Tipping Point Best Ever Finals.
Next question. Are you sitting comfortably? HSL Clever Comfort, proud sponsors of Tipping Point.
One show has pushed people quite literally to the edge.
What are you going over there for?
I can't take much more of this.
Almost 4,500 players have flocked to Face TV's most talked about machine.
Oh, no. Oh, my goodness me.
And a galaxy of lucky stars have followed.
I love this show.
Together they've won nearly £6 million.
That is life-changing for me.
With just under £1 million of that going to good causes.
Enough to make you want to pickle your walnuts.
We're looking back at the